Hello everyone, this is New World Updates and today is the 25th of April 2023 and we are now on 426 days of the war in Ukraine. On the news today there are some reports that Ukraine plans to launch their counter-offensive operations in May and they are preparing 12 brigades of 4,000 soldiers. This is according to the New York Times. In Kiev there are rumors that the offensive will lead to a breakthrough of the Russian defense and the collapse of the Russian army, but in the West, they do not believe that the operation will lead to a sharp change in the situation at the front in favor of the armed forces of Ukraine, writes the New York Times. The armed forces of Ukraine are facing many problems and the most likely the outcome of their counter-offensive will remain a stalemate. According to the reports, fighting in Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine this winter had depleted the Ukrainian ammunition stocks and led to heavy losses in experienced units. But the armed forces of Ukraine are now armed with NATO tanks, infantry fighting vehicles and armored personnel carriers, and also have new units trained and equipped by the Americans and the Alliance. In the United States, they expect the Ukrainians to use deceit and subterfuge to confuse the Russians. Western intelligence will play an important role in the counteroffensive. If the US and allies can identify significant weaknesses in the defense of Russia, Kiev will be able to exploit them through the speed and protection of Bradley tanks and combat vehicles. The Russians have mined areas for the offensive, and the advancement of the armed forces of Ukraine will depend on the effectiveness of the use of Western demining machines. At the same time, the chances that Putin will retreat after the counter-offensive are less than zero, Western officials say. He would probably prefer to call in more soldiers. In another reports, Russian main battle tank Armata began to participate in the special military operation in Ukraine. Russian troops began to use the latest Armata tanks to fire at Ukrainian positions. They have not yet participated in direct assault operations, the source told RIA Novosti. Tanks T-14 Armata in Ukraine had received additional side protection from anti-tank ammunition. The source noted that since the end of last year, the crews of the T-14 Armata have undergone combat coordination at training grounds in one of the People's Republics of Donbas. Another report has also surfaced today on the media that the Challenger 2 tanks have arrived in Ukraine. It is also reported that the British Ministry of Defence has made their decision on the use of depleted uranium munitions clear. They will supply them to Ukraine, and what happens with them from that point onward is not their problem, according to the British Ministry of Defence. Reportedly there are 1,000 rounds of ammunition for the Challenger 2 tanks delivered to Ukraine. Video images have been circulating on Twitter of a Russian Spetsnaz soldier apparently testing out a PKM heavy machine gun with an unusual ammunition-feeding backpack that bears an uncanny resemblance to Jesse Ventura's alien perforating mini-gun from Predator. The backpack, known as the Scorpio, is a product of Front Tactical Systems, and according to the firearm blog, it was designed at the request of the Russian military as a method of increasing machine gun efficiency. Now let's go to the battlefront. Reports there are fierce fighting near Avdiivka. The Russian army is pushing through the defense of the armed forces of Ukraine, advancing from 4 directions. This is reported by Ukrainian military analysts. Russian forces and the Donetsk People's Republic forces in the Avdiivka direction had advanced west of H20 and reached the railway again close to the town of Novokalinov. Things have now become very difficult in the area of Opatny and Vodyany for the Russian forces, where they are trying to break through to the north. To the north of Vodyany, Russian troops are attempting to advance along the forest belts towards the village of Severnoy and the village of Tonenko. In Pervomaysky and to the north of it, the situation is also very difficult. Russian troops are trying to break through the defense of the armed forces of Ukraine. In Pervomaysky itself, fighting continues in the gray zone between the Izmailovsky and Moika ponds. The Russian army is also advancing from Krasnogorsk-Kamenka to the west. The Russian forces has some success here. South of the village of Navalskoy, Russian troops, supported by tanks, attacked the positions of the armed forces of Ukraine in the forest belt. The forest belt is captured by some Russian troops. From Novobakhmutovka, the Russians are moving north to Alexanderpol, but the Russian units are having some difficulties because of the hills in this direction. Russian forces, supported by artillery, are advancing near Nevskoy and Makayevka. Also, the Russian forces advanced in Spornoy. The armed forces of Ukraine were forced out of the gas distribution station. To the Bakhmut front, the PMC Wagner are moving from the liberated railway station Bakhmut 2 towards the enemy's defense center in the western part of the city. There are some reports that the Wagner forces occupied high-rise buildings on Pushkin Street, the building of the pre-trial detention center. The front moved further to the west. There is an assault on the military unit, which is located in the city. The advance is also coming from the northern and southern flanks. Fighting for the Ukrainian stronghold, equipped in a complex of multi-story buildings at the corner of Korsky and Chaikovsky streets, continues. Russian forces broke the first defense line of Ukrainian army north of Keremuvo. Russian forces hasn't entered in the town yet, as some of trenches system still under Ukrainian control. This contradicts early reports today that the Russian forces have entered the town of Keremuvo. Two Su-25 of the armed forces of Ukraine tried to attack the positions of the Russian army near Kherson today. One attack aircraft was destroyed. The two Ukrainian attack aircrafts were heading towards the islands on the Dnieper. Along the way, the first one received a rocket from the Russian forces and collapsed not far from the coast. The second aircraft of the Ukrainian forces managed to escape from the Russian positions. His white silhouette is visible on the left side of the screen on the footage published by some Russian soldiers. And that's all for today's report, and if you enjoyed my video, please help by liking and make your comments to tell me what you think. Also subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification button, so that you will receive a notification at any time I post a new video. See you in my next video.